In the EU, there's growing frustration with the British course. London and Brussels have expressed their disappointment at the lack of progress in negotiating an agreement for the post-Brexit transition period. Both sides made accusations after the 7th round of negotiations. And the clock is ticking. The two top diplomats, Michel Barnier and David Frost, can talk to each other in French and English, but the French and the British cannot communicate in either language. Even after spending a lot of time together, Barnier, the EU's chief negotiator for a Brexit follow-up agreement, and his British counterpart seem to have little in common, apart from the fact that both were infected with COVID-19 in the meantime. Barnier integrated 3 English expressions into his polished French. Le fair play, fair treatment of each other. Il n'y a pas de cherry picking, there is no cherry picking. And Brexit means Brexit. The Frenchman has been sounding like a stuck record for months, said the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung before the start of the 7th round of negotiations, which again remained unsuccessful. Now the record is always running backwards. This week it felt too often as if we are stepping backwards, admitted Barnier when taking stock of the talks. There has been no progress at all on the main issues, only a few technical issues. I just don't understand why we are wasting precious time, said the former French foreign minister and EU commissioner frustrated, who usually appeared so stoic. Nevertheless, it should go on. The next round of negotiations is scheduled for September 7th to September 11th in London. The chairman of the European Parliament's Trade Committee, the SPD MEP Bernd Lange, has said goodbye to the hope that a comprehensive trade framework agreement for future relations between the EU and the United Kingdom could still be reached. At most, smaller agreements about internal security and customs regulations are still conceivable. In this respect, the talks are not completely wasted time. However, they cast doubts as to the reliability of London as a contractual partner. CDU man David McAllister, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the EU Parliament, warns, the EU is not interested in a last-minute decision. This is not helpful and possibly very detrimental for both sides. Lange considers the consequences for the British in particularly bleak. This will lead to a further deindustrialization of Great Britain. Already now, the island state can throw less economic power than natural resource wealth into the scales. Its fishing waters. If they are no longer freely accessible, then it will be difficult for German and French fishermen, says Lange. On the other hand, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's leverage on this issue is again not that long. On the one hand, the British are also interested in Nordic types of fish, and 80% of the fish they catch go either directly or as fish products as exports to the EU. Barnier and Frost are increasingly finding bones on their plates at their work lunches. After all, there are around 100 species of fish for which London wants to negotiate new catch quotas every year. The EU rejects this as impractical. The list of other problems is also long. For example, as Barnier complained, the British do not want their truck drivers to be subject to the regulation applicable there, including for working hours when driving in the EU. Another point of contention are the regulations for state aid for companies. Traditionally, these are not very widespread in Great Britain. However, it takes little imagination to imagine that this could change due to the corona consequences. Barnier is extremely observant and adamant about this. The EU is ready to compete with British companies, but only under fair conditions. An international agreement has never been reached without both parties committing to common rules, warns the Frenchman. His counterpart David Frost, however, accuses the EU of unnecessarily complicating the negotiations. The BBC quoted him saying that the Union was hampering the negotiations by clinging to state aid and fishing rights without addressing other issues first. The BBC also delivered the assessment from the British negotiating team that Barnier wanted to treat Great Britain as if it were still part of the EU. To be on the safe side, the EU Commission is now reassuring itself in all capitals of the Union about the status of preparations for a hard Brexit at the end of the transition period that will run until December 31st, after which the major consequences of the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union will be felt for both sides actually become noticeable. In order to be able to finalize a comprehensive agreement, On damage limitation in good time, an agreement would have to be in place by the end of October. That is why Barnier ended his press conference on the current state of affairs in the reliable manner of a stuck record with a sentence that has been heard from him for months. The clock is ticking. And if you now want to know more about European politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you on the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!